Florida's endless boom was supposed to be unstoppable, yet right now over 208,000 homes across the state are sitting unsold. Neighborhoods see listings outnumbering neighbors, and condos remain dark long after sunset. This is not the Hollywood idea of a ghost town, but in 2025, entire pockets of the Sunshine State are showing the same warnings as before the 2008 crash, with months of inventory piling up, median days on market of 79 days, and worried owners watching prices slip. So what's pushing America's hottest housing market toward empty sidewalks and stalled dreams? Are we really witnessing a repeat, or is something new haunting Florida's streets? Let's break down the real numbers behind the headlines. Redfin's statewide tracker shows Florida with 208,451 homes for sale in October 2025, a 3.7% jump over last year, and the highest share of active listings in the country. That is not just a big number. It means Florida now holds 15% of all homes for sale in the United States. The classic marker for a buyer's market is 6 months of inventory. Florida just crossed that line, with months of supply now sitting right at 6. In some metropolitan areas, inventory is even higher. Homes are sitting longer too. Axios reports that the median days on market in Florida is now 79. Compare that to 49 days nationally, and the slowdown becomes clear. Sellers who could once expect a bidding war now wait nearly 3 months for an offer. Major metros like Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville, and Tampa are all showing 6 to nearly 10 months of supply. That is a level not seen since the last crash, and it is a sign that buyers have the upper hand for the first time in years. Underneath these numbers, the story is not about a statewide collapse, but about growing pockets where the market is out of balance. Inventory is piling up faster than buyers can absorb it. The result is more homes for sale than people ready to move in, and a rising tide of neighborhoods where for sale signs start to outnumber the neighbors. A true Florida ghost town rarely means empty streets or boarded up storefronts. Here, the signs are more subtle and more modern. The telltale markers appear in neighborhoods where the share of homes for sale or in foreclosure climbs far above normal. On some blocks, lots sit empty or half-built, with construction paused and no one moving in. Real estate signs gather in clusters, sometimes outnumbering mailboxes. In high-rise condo towers, the pattern shifts. After dark, rows of windows stay unlit, not just for a season, but for months at a time. That is not just snowbirds, it is sustained vacancy. Nationally, housing vacancy is still low by historical standards. A TTOM, a leading property data firm, puts the United States vacancy rate at 1.32%. Most neighborhoods remain stable with few empty homes. But Florida's story is different in certain pockets. The state now leads the nation in foreclosure filings, and some zip codes rank among the top 5 in the United States for zombie foreclosures. Nationwide, these zombie properties make up about 3.25% of all foreclosures. In parts of Florida, the concentration is much higher. The ghost town label is not about the entire state or even entire cities. It is about clusters where the usual rhythms of life break down, where too many homes sit empty, construction is left unfinished, and the promise of new communities gives way to uncertainty. These are the patterns to watch as the case studies unfold. Cape Coral stands out as the sharpest example of Florida's new housing crisis. During the pandemic, home prices here soared by 75% as buyers poured in and builders raced to meet demand. But that climb reversed just as quickly. Over the last 2 years, prices have fallen by about 11%, with 12 of the last 13 months showing declines. The market's momentum didn't just slow, it snapped. Today, more than 6,000 homes are listed for sale in Cape Coral, a number that dwarfs the inventory from just a few years ago. The story is not just about numbers on a page. On the ground, whole neighborhoods are dotted with for sale signs. Over half of all listings have already cut their asking price, and about 8% of homeowners now owe more on their mortgage than their property is worth. The streets tell their own story. In subdivisions that were bustling with construction crews in 2021, empty lots sit untouched and shells of half-built houses stand quiet. Some builders and investors faced with higher costs and fewer buyers have simply walked away. Projects launched during the frenzy of the pandemic boom are now frozen in place, their futures uncertain. Behind the scenes, small developers and out-of-state investor groups hold blocks of vacant lots or unfinished homes, many now tangled in legal disputes or edging toward foreclosure. County records show a surge in stale building permits, projects that started with optimism but never reached completion. Local real estate agents describe neighborhoods where the only steady visitors are lawn crews and code enforcement officers. For longtime residents, the transformation is hard to miss. Families who bought at the peak worry about falling values and the growing number of empty houses on their street. Investors who plan to flip or rent out new homes are stuck with properties they can't sell or lease. Some have stopped maintaining their lots altogether, leaving weeds and debris to collect. Cape Coral's story echoes the crash of 2008, but with new twists. The collapse is not driven by bad loans this time, but by a toxic mix of overbuilding, rising insurance costs, and a sudden retreat by investors. The result is a landscape where the promise of endless growth has been replaced by uncertainty, and where the signs of distress are visible on every block. Lehigh Acres sits just east of Fort Myers, but its story is distinct. Here, the landscape is a patchwork of paved roads, empty lots, and scattered homes, a legacy of past booms that never quite filled in. As of late 2025, more than 5,000 homes are listed for sale across Lehigh Acres. In zip code 33936, the average home value has slipped to around $243,000, down 9 to 10% from a year ago. Listings linger for a median of 47 days before going under contract, a clear sign that buyers are in no hurry. Developers once carved this area into thousands of quarter-acre parcels, laying out streets and utilities for neighborhoods that never arrived. Some of those lots have changed hands half a dozen times since the 2008 crash, flipping from builder to investor to bank and back again. Legal disputes over unfinished infrastructure and unpaid assessments still clog county records, leaving entire tracts in limbo. Local brokers describe a market where supply is always just ahead of demand and where the next wave of construction can stall as quickly as it starts. Many of the homes now on the market were built or remodeled during the pandemic rush, but without steady buyers, they risk slipping into a new cycle of vacancy. Port St. Lucie, on Florida's Atlantic side, tells a quieter but equally telling story. Inventory has ballooned to 2,327 active listings, with 477 new properties hitting the market in recent months. The numbers reveal a growing gap between what sellers want and what buyers are willing to pay. The median list price stands at about $420,000, but the median sale price is closer to $380,000. Only 14.7% of homes close above asking, while more than two-thirds sell for less. Homes take a median of 48 days to go pending, reflecting a slowdown that is broadening across the region. In both Lehigh Acres and Port St. Lucie, the mechanisms of stagnation differ from the coastal condo crisis or the Cape Coral bust. Here, it is not just about unfinished towers or investor walkaways. Instead, it is the slow buildup of unsold homes, the steady drip of price reductions, and the growing sense among local agents that the market is stuck in neutral. Developers, brokers, and longtime residents each face a landscape where the promise of perpetual growth has faded, replaced by the reality of too much inventory and not enough movement. These inland and suburban soft spots reveal another side of Florida's housing story, one shaped by past overreach and present-day caution. Condo towers along Florida's coast are facing a crisis that goes far beyond the ebb and flow of seasonal residents. In 2025, the state's unsold condo inventory is the highest it has been since 2012. Some units have seen price cuts of up to 40%, and entire buildings are struggling to fill their halls. The fallout from the Surfside disaster in 2021 triggered sweeping new safety rules, forcing older towers to undergo costly structural inspections and to fund expensive repairs. These mandates, paired with a wave of insurance carriers leaving the state, have hit owners with six-figure special assessments and soaring premiums. For many, the math no longer works. Boards scramble to cover bills, but some residents simply surrender their keys and walk away. In towers built before the 1980s, vacancy rates have climbed past 30% in the hardest-hit stretches of Miami-Dade and Broward. At night, rows of dark windows reveal how many units now sit empty, not just between renters or snowbird seasons, but for months on end. The pressure is not limited to the condo market. In Tampa Bay, vacation home and short-term rental sales have fallen to their weakest level since 2018. Second home mortgages make up just 3.2% of new loans in the region, less than half the share seen during the pandemic boom. Local real estate boards report fewer than 925 vacation or Airbnb-type closings in the first half of 2025, down 40% from a year earlier. Homes that once promised easy rental income now linger on the market for nearly 2 months. Stricter local rules on short-term rentals, combined with insurance premiums that routinely top $9,000 a year, have driven many investors to exit. Rows of houses in once busy vacation corridors now stand empty, waiting for buyers who may never come at the old prices. These pockets of vacancy are not the result of mass foreclosures or unfinished construction. Instead, they are the outcome of ownership costs that have become unsustainable for both residents and investors. Condo boards face impossible choices, raise fees, levy new assessments, or risk losing even more owners. In the vacation rental market, the promise of easy returns has faded, replaced by a hard reality of mounting expenses and stricter oversight. The result is a new kind of emptiness, one shaped not by economic collapse, but by the slow grind of costs that outpace what owners and buyers are willing to pay. Builders across Florida spent the pandemic years racing to meet what seemed like bottomless demand. New subdivisions and condo towers rose from the ground at a pace not seen in decades, with developers betting that migration and investment would keep fueling sales. But as the dust settled, the supply pipeline did not slow, leaving a glut of unsold homes in metros like Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and Cape Coral. Forecasts now point to persistently high inventory through at least 2027, as the backlog of new builds and lingering listings outpaces the number of ready buyers. At the same time, the cost of simply owning a home in Florida has soared. Homeowners' insurance premiums now routinely land between $6,000 and $10,000 a year, with some coastal policies far higher. Since 2022, multiple major insurers have pulled out of the state, forcing thousands of owners into Citizens, the state insurer of last resort. Citizens itself has raised rates and issued new assessments, squeezing budgets even further. For many owners, these bills now rival or exceed their mortgage payments. The math no longer works for many people. Some list their homes at a loss, others simply walk away, adding to the swelling inventory. Foreclosure filings have climbed to the highest rate in the country. In October 2025, 1 in every 1,829 Florida homes received a foreclosure notice, the worst showing nationwide. The legal process drags on, leaving behind a growing number of so-called zombie properties, vacant homes stuck in limbo as banks and owners sort out who is responsible. In some ZIP codes, especially in Pinellas County and the inland subdivisions, these abandoned houses cluster block by block, pulling down local values and inviting code violations. Meanwhile, buyers are pulling back. High prices, rising interest rates, and crushing insurance costs have pushed many out of the market entirely. Nationally, nearly a quarter of homes had price drops in October 2025, and Florida's share is even higher in many metros. The investor retreat is just as sharp. Vacation home and Airbnb sales are at their lowest since 2018, leaving rows of empty houses that no one wants at the old prices. The result is a market where supply keeps climbing, but demand has hit a wall. That combination is what gives some neighborhoods the ghost town feel, even though the state as a whole is far from abandoned. The scars of 2008 run deep in Florida's housing memory, but the roots of today's crisis are different. Back then, the collapse was triggered by loose lending, subprime mortgages, no documentation loans, and a wave of risky financial products. Delinquency rates soared, banks failed, and entire neighborhoods emptied almost overnight. In 2025, the story is more complicated. Most recent buyers passed far tougher credit checks, and the average mortgage is much stronger. National delinquency rates remain well below the peaks of the last crash, and there is no tidal wave of bad loans threatening to sweep through the financial system. Instead, the pressure comes from a different direction. The cost of owning a home has outpaced what many can afford. Skyrocketing insurance premiums, special condo assessments, and higher interest rates are squeezing budgets. In certain neighborhoods, these costs have become the tipping point, leading owners to list, walk away, or fall behind, even with solid credit. The result is a patchwork of distress, concentrated in places where supply has run far ahead of demand. For anyone trying to make sense of the risk, there are practical signals to watch for. Start by looking for neighborhoods where listings pile up and homes linger for weeks without offers. Watch for clusters of empty lots, half-finished construction, or multiple for sale signs on the same street. Price cuts that come in waves, not just on a handful of homes but across entire subdivisions, are another warning. In condo towers, rising fees, sudden special assessments, or a pattern of dark windows at night often point to deeper trouble. Foreclosure filings that stand out from the surrounding area are a final red flag, especially when combined with visible vacancy. The tools are available to everyone: Zillow, Redfin, county foreclosure records. By tracking these patterns, buyers and owners can spot the early symptoms of a neighborhood in decline. The lesson from 2008 is clear. The warning signs are visible for those who know where to look. Today, the fuse is not bad credit, it is the math of ownership, and the signals are hiding in plain sight. Florida now holds 15% of all active home listings in the U.S., a stark reminder that overbuilding and affordability crises can hollow out even the hottest markets. As insurance costs climb and demand thins, these empty streets warn every Sunbelt boomtown. Fast growth doesn't guarantee lasting community. Today's vacancies shape tomorrow's neighborhoods, one unsold house at a time. What would you do if your block went quiet? Let me know in the comments.